Producers tend to have the preconception that digital is cheap. When you really give them the sums and get them to work through the equations, it's not that magic that we're sold by some of the electronics manufacturers. In fact, it can be more expensive, considerably more expensive.
You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big.
When the digital elements started to come into play and we were pitched to shoot digitally, I asked what their reasons were, and they initially said financial. And by doing some research, we found that there really is no financial gain by shooting digital, that in fact, in some ways, it could probably cost you more money in terms of time and equipment and whatnot. And in a show like this, where you're working with children, you can't take the extra time to light the shots that you would have to take shooting digitally as opposed to film.
The last film I did, Lost in Translation, we were considering shooting digital video for that. You know, we looked at some different things, some high-def systems, you know, all based on 24p type of video systems. Well, we're at a distant location in Tokyo, which you think would make it easier because there's so much innovation there. But at the same time, to go from a one-camera shoot to, on some days, having 3 cameras and personnel and crew, it was just... practically, it was simpler to just shoot film in the end.
I remember when we were doing that comparison test where we shot film 35mm side by side with HD cam and the Sony Varicam. What we learned was my film crew, sitting there with the film camera, was set up and waiting for about 15 minutes while the video crew ran back and forth and strung cable and fiddled with their waveform monitors and fiddled with the monitors and built a black tent so they could see the monitors and check back focus and all that. 15 minutes per setup. They sat there in their Apple boxes and watched them run back and forth. Now, if you're doing a show and you're moving fast and you're doing 20, 30 setups a day, which is not unusual in the sort of work we do these days, think of how much time that's taking, 15 minutes per setup, to mess around with all that stuff. That's a tremendous amount of time. It'll cause you many hours of overtime or another day of shooting with a crew of 40, 50, 60 people. It's not faster. It's unbelievably slower.
It's kind of a common, I think, misconception is that if you're shooting digital video or working in digital formats, it'll simplify what you're doing. I mean, like a ViperCam system, for instance, is much more complicated than a 435 with a MAGA film on the back in terms of engineering and everything involved in it. It's an expense. So that's the practical production side of it. And then it just comes down to, too, what you're after in terms of the visuals of it.
I did a pilot in digital, and it just doesn't overexpose well. I mean, here, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to take a maxi brute and pound it through the window. It would just explode. Anything that overexposes even minutely, a quarters of a stop make a difference in digital as to whether it's going to lose detail or maintain detail.
For something like Casa de los Babies, it certainly would have saved us some money to do it, but the visceral feeling of it would not have been right. We had so many scenes out on a bright beach, you know, with uncontrollable hot, close to the equator line sun, and there's a certain look that has on video that you can only modify very, very, very slightly.
Film is more of a tried and true medium at this point. It's like the major proponents right now of shooting video and shooting HD, you look at the examples of the films being made by those proponents, and I don't feel like they really qualify a lot of times in terms of being serious cinematic pieces. They're more commerce than they are art, I think.
Digital can mean a lot less image quality. It can mean a lot more problems. And that's just across the board. It is a very compressed format. Certainly digital has its advantages, and certainly in the post era, it is stunning what we can do now digitally. But the beauty of film acquisition, it is fully uncompressed, full color gamut, full RGB, not compressed, not component. You can play with that image so much, and that's a very big advantage.
One of the things that we were talking about earlier was the differences between shooting in video or electronic medium and how that affects your capability in post-production. The best analogy I can think of is like putting your telecine colorist in handcuffs. There is so little information in that video image that they basically have nowhere to go. There's no information, extra information in the highlights, there's no extra information in the shadows. What you see is what you get.
Video has 1,050 lines of resolution. Boom. 16 mil has 2,500 lines of resolution. 35 mil has 5,000 lines of resolution. I think it's enough said. I mean, that's it.
The selling point for this show, quite honestly, is single camera shows are so much more expensive than multi-camera shows. The way I sold it was to say that we're going to do it faster and better than everybody else.
I can't do this all on my own. No, I know I'm no Superman.
And we're going to shoot 30 minutes of motion picture quality film in 5 days a week, where every other show in town tries to do it in 6, and most of them can't accomplish it.
I'm no Superman.
You know, I don't think I realized in the beginning how perfect the medium it was for this show, but it became apparent because it's I need the depth of film in Super 16 to shoot this show, because I need to see out windows and source through windows, things that video wouldn't be able to tolerate.
The film stocks have become so fine-grained and so high-speed that you don't need the light to get exposure anymore. You light for effect. I lean upon that latitude to work faster because budgets, are tight. People are trying to save money. They're trying to get done what we used to do in 4 days, they now do in 2 days. So I work tremendously fast because I know I can lean upon the flexibility of film. Know that while we're shooting with 70 people standing around, I don't need to set up an extra light. I don't need to take that light away. I can deal with all that stuff in post-production.
In Lost in Translation, the experimentation that went on there was trying to find out how far into the underexposure range you could push that film stock. Because the rating, the 500 ASA rating that was on the can with that was really conservative. Our original nighttime exterior test I was shooting on Zeiss high-speed primes at wide open or at a 2, and we ended up, after looking at the results of that, I found that oftentimes we'd be more at a 4 or a 5.6 at nighttime outside. That there was just, the film was much more sensitive than you would think.
Film is a very generous format in terms of mistakes. You can make a mistake in exposure, and it's very comfortably contained within the latitude of the stock. You don't want to make exposure mistakes on video, particularly overexposure, because you don't have any headroom.
Damn it, blue car!
The reason we chose the film stock that we did is to make it look as much like 35 as possible. The 200 ASA, I tested all the films, really gave us the broadest range in order to be able to shoot in almost any situation. Here we punish the film. I mean, we use maxi brutes and 20Ks, and so the stop range in any given frame is going to be anywhere from 5 stops over to 5 stops under, continually. I mean, it's really part of the look of the show, and this kind of film really gives us that latitude to be able to really overexpose and still hold detail, and underexpose and still hold detail. It helps us shoot fast.